Time for All Ages, I think, let me do more. So thank you.
Oh, good. Okay. There we go. Letting Elizabeth in now.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Can you make me a co-host?
Yeah, 1 second here.
How you doing, Elizabeth?
I got some anxiety going on this morning,
Yeah?
but I didn't sleep well at all. I kept waking up with anxiety thoughts, So I'm going to be trying to ground myself here for the next 5 minutes.
Okay.
Good.
Are you all okay?
Who's running the primary account this morning? Is that Greg or Nasreen?
Greg.
Okay, so you will need Greg to make you a co-host.
Okay.
Because it's not giving me the permissions to do that.
Got it.
Hi, everyone.
Good morning, Greg.
Hi. Okay, so I need to make Joel a co-host. I heard that as I was coming back in the room.
Thanks.
Could you make me a co-host too?
Yeah, okay, I see that Joel is. And I'm watching for them roses because there are chalice lighters this morning. I don't see them quite yet.
All right. Can I go ahead and open the waiting room? Are you guys ready for that?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and start
Sure.
the live stream. So know that that's gonna be on in about a minute, and I'll open the room up. Thanks, everyone.
No problem. Elizabeth, it's okay to mute and turn your camera off until it's time if you just need a moment.
Thank
Like
you.
most of us do. Good morning, roses. Hi, Ian. Hi, Eric.
Morning.
You guys got your chalice?
Yay.
Excellent. Greg will spotlight you when it's time, and you're welcome to have your camera off until then. Happy birthday, Eric.
Oh, thank you.
Ooh, happy birthday.
There we go. Perfect.
Okay, everyone, I'm going to open the doors now. Good morning, everyone. Happy New Year. Welcome to All Souls Unitarian Church. My name is Greg Sanders, and I am the music director here. This is a super fun service for me to pick out some of this stuff. We just listened to the Dave Brubeck Quartet play a very famous and seminal work of his called Take 5. It's called Take 5 because most musical meters are in 4. So that means that we normally count 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's why those dancers, only thing they can do is count to 8. But that song is actually counts to 5. So it kind of gives a little bit of a swingy, unsettling kind of feel. We've got lots of great music in store for you today as you enjoy this service on Jazz Theology. I'm here to help with anything you might need technically. If you have any problems or issues with the service, feel free to check the chat and send me a direct message, and I'll help you the best I can. Please remember to stay muted during the service today. It's very helpful for us to be able to hear everyone. You're also going to want to probably observe the service through speaker view. That's usually your best way to do it. Also remember that we are recording this service for later use, and we are live streaming. So everyone behave yourselves for the internet, please. Our worship associate today is our intern minister, Elizabeth Valencia, and she has a welcome for us. Enjoy the service. Thank you so much.
Good morning. I am Elizabeth Valencia, serving as intern minister here at All Souls this church here, and as worship associate for this morning's service. Glad to be here with you all. Welcome to our service. We are online today and through the rest of the month, and Reverend Joel will continue to communicate with the congregation about what we can expect about returning in person. We currently have a coffee hour scheduled for on Zoom after the service, and you will be able to find the link for coffee hour on the homepage of the website at allsoulsindy.org. If you would like to receive our weekly email news, Sarah Cannon will tell you in a moment about how you can do that in our connection card. And if you're a visitor with us this morning, we are glad that you are here with us today. In a few moments, we will open our service with a beautiful ritual that has been central to the life of All Souls since 1903. And we share this ritual with so many congregations across the United States, all over North America, and the world at large that hosts UU churches and spaces, although everyone does it a little differently. We say our covenant as a way to remember and live out the community of love and justice that we aim to be. Welcome, and as I have grown up saying in Spanish, bienvenidos.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sarah Cannon, for those who don't know me, and I wanted to make sure that I called your attention to our weekly connection card. When we do this in person, this is a physical card that you'll find in the pew beside you. And when we do it online, you'll find that it's something that we use online. So this is just a way for you to stay connected to what's going on at All Souls and to find programs that might be of interest to you, as well as to connect with church staff and clergy so that if you have a pastoral care need that you want to make others aware of, there's an opportunity for you to do that. It's short and sweet, please fill it out and let us know. And if you're a visitor, it's a very good idea to fill this out as well, because this is how we are able to add you to our weekly publications that will further keep you abreast of activities at All Souls. Thank you so much.
Good morning. I'm Joel Miller. I'm the interim minister here at All Souls. So glad to welcome you. So glad we can at least get together if the new COVID variant Omicron requires us to be more distanced as we have been. And if you are as frustrated as I am about that, then we are in good company. So for today, I find myself turning to a story, a book from 1967 entitled Frederick. And it seemed like the right one on this day that we're more distanced than expected. All along the meadow where the cows grazed and the horses ran, there was an old stone wall. In that wall, not far from the barn and the granary, a chatty family of field mice had their home. But the farmers had moved away. The barn was abandoned. The granary was now empty. And since winter was not far off, the mice began to gather corn and nuts and wheat and straw. They worked day and night, all except Frederick. "Frederick, why don't you work?" they asked. "Well, I do work," said Frederick. "I gather sun rays for cold, dark winter days." And then later they saw Frederick sitting there staring at the meadow. They said, "And now, Frederick?" "I gather colors," answered Frederick simply, "because winter is gray." And once Frederick seemed half asleep. "Well, are you dreaming, Frederick?" they asked him. But Frederick said, "Oh, no, I'm gathering words, for the winter days are long and many, and we'll run out of things to say." The winter days came, and when the first snow fell, the field mice took to their hideout in the stone wall. In the beginning, there was a lot to eat. The mice told stories of foolish foxes and silly cats. They were a happy family. But little by little, they had nibbled up most of the nuts and the berries. The straw was gone, the corn only a memory. It was cold in the wall. No one felt like chatting. Then they remembered what Frederick had said about sun rays and colors and words. "What about your supplies, Frederick?" they asked. "Close your eyes," said Frederick. He climbed on a big stone. "Now I send you the rays of the sun. Do you feel their golden glow?" And Frederick spoke of the sun. The little mice began to feel warmer. Was it Frederick's voice? Was it magic? "Oh, tell us about the colors, Frederick," they asked. "Close your eyes again," Frederick said. And when he told them of the blue periwinkles, the red poppies and the yellow wheat, and the green leaves of the berry bush, they saw the colors as clearly as if they had been painted in their minds. "And the words, Frederick, tell us the words." Frederick cleared his throat, waited for a moment, and then said, as if from a stage, "Who scatters the snowflakes? Who melts the ice? Who spoils the weather? Who makes it nice? Who grows the four-leaf clover in June? Who dims the daylight? Who lights the moon? 4 little field mice who live in the sky, 4 little field mice like you and I. One is the spring mouse who turns on the showers. Then comes the summer mouse who paints in the flowers. The fall mouse is next with walnuts and wheat, and winter is last with little cold feet. Aren't we lucky the seasons are 4? Think of a year with one less or one more." When Frederick had finished, they all applauded. "Frederick," they said, "you are a poet." Frederick blushed, took a bow, and said shyly, "I know it." We say now together the words of our covenant as Ian and Eric light our chalice.
Love is the spirit of our church.
Service is its law. To dwell together in
peace, to seek the
truth in love, and to help one another. This is our covenant.
Thank you for lighting our chalice for us this morning. And happy birthday to Eric. So in a moment, Sarah Cannon will tell us more about jazz music, and later we will hear from Reverend Joel, who will talk to us about jazz spirituality and more about its history. My own exposure to jazz music is here and there, but it's always been a safe space emotionally and physically, helping to ground me in that moment to the magic being created by musicians. My exposure to jazz music includes putting on jazz coffee study music playlists on YouTube. It's a good neutral place to start my morning. Or jazz downtown, at the Latin Jazz Kitchen in Irvington and different spots. And I had a boss who was a Latin jazz pianist who taught me more about the Latin jazz influence today. So for me, jazz has shown up in snippets, and it has had the ability to pull me in and out of things that I am doing. For me, being and remaining a Unitarian Universalist is kind of like jazz music is in my life. Jazz music always has a place, and being Unitarian Universalist, I think, is always going to have a place too. And before I tell you a little bit more about that connection, I want to read a quote to you from the June 2020 report by the UUA called Widening the Circle of Concern, report of the UUA Commission on Institutional Change. To give you a little background about this report, at the New Orleans General Assembly in 2017, the UUA Board of Trustees announced and chartered the Commission on Institutional Change. This charge was to conduct an audit of the power structures, to analyze systemic racism and white supremacy culture with the UUA. This is a report that is available in book format through the UUA. And the quote that caught my attention, that made me think further about why I'm here as a Unitarian Universalist, is this one. And I have the book in my hands. Since the mid-20th century, more Unitarian Universalists are come-inners than birthright Unitarian Universalists. Many of those who came in during the 1960s through the 1980s were interested in getting away from religious practices that they felt were non-rational, demeaning, or illogical. The attraction of our faith was what it was not: non-creedal, non-hierarchical, and the emphasis was on personal freedom. In recent decades, more of those entering our doors have been attracted by our beliefs, and their interest has been in the tenets of our faith. And I am one of those that was attracted to UU because of what it is and what it offers, not because of what it isn't. I bring with me a ton of stuff as someone with my faith background in Catholicism and Islam. And of the things that UU is for me is these words: creative process incarnate. And these words I heard in a YouTube talk on the history of jazz the other night. I heard those words and I thought, yes, yes, all yes, because for me, UU is a space where I have been able to go back into the past religious experiences that I have and make space for the things that brought me to where I am now. I remember when I attended Meadville Lombard Theological School, I had the opportunity to do an interfaith mini sermon, a homily, reflection for a worship service with my colleagues and our professors. And it was going to be about the Women's March. And I talked about Mary, Mother of Jesus. I talked about her from a Mexican Catholic lens and also an American Muslim lens. And I was able to create something so unique that I could see brought something beautiful to Meadville, and I could see professors who were just piqued with curiosity. And in 2017, I was on a stage at the Vogue talking about miracles from this Catholic Muslim lens. But what gave me permission to do that was being a Unitarian Universalist, because it offered me this space of safety, the reminder that everything is interconnected and that I have permission to do it, and that my own spiritual journey is mine to honor. And so since I've been a Unitarian Universalist, my journey has been to give myself permission to do creative things, just like jazz offers. Jazz is just magic and imagination in that moment happening. And I've also witnessed my children doing the same in other sorts of experiences that they're in. For example, in scouting, my older son was the chaplain elected for his scouting troop. And this was a scouting troop of inner city youth. And he was chosen as chaplain. And because of his experiences as a Unitarian Universalist in different cons that he attended with other youth, he was equipped with the ability to provide a worship service to all of these diverse youth that was truly inclusive. So my flavor of UUism is influenced by so much, and I am just so glad that I'm here wrestling with what it means to be Muslim Unitarian Universalist, wrestling with what my life is going to continue to become. And so I offer you what holds meaning to you. And what is this creative process that as Unitarian Universalists, you have access to? Thank you.
Good morning again, everyone. I'm excited to be here with you today, especially because when I started talking to Reverend Joel about this service, and he told me that he was going to talk about jazz theology, I thought, oh my gosh, what is that? And I had to go find out. Now, we've already talked about theology, right? You can go one more forward. Theology means our beliefs about religion and higher powers. You can be an atheist who doesn't believe in higher powers, a theist who does, or an agnostic who isn't sure. And these are all theologies. But jazz is a kind of music. And it isn't necessarily something that I had thought of as church music. So jazz theology is a new idea for me. But hey, I'm a Unitarian Universalist. And so when I hear about something related to religion that I haven't heard before, I look it up. I listen to podcasts. I see if there are any awesome books to read. Though some of you are aware, I have been reading so many books about religion lately that, to be honest, I should probably not be buying more. As I was looking into this, I started to think, I wonder how much y'all know about jazz music. You've probably heard it before, but you might not have known it was called jazz while you were listening. And even if you do know that jazz music exists, you might not know some of the things that make it special. Things that Reverend Joel might talk about today. First of all, jazz is a music of liberation. Liberation means the act of freeing someone or claiming your own freedom. Jazz was born from the African American experience here in the United States. Black artists used musical instruments, mostly European instruments like trumpets or saxophones or pianos, the instruments of the people who had enslaved them, and used them to express their own culture and spirit. They created something new and exciting that is still changing right this minute. Jazz, like nature, is always evolving. Now, jazz musicians do something that I think is very brave. They improvise. That means that right in the middle of performing, they'll just make something up and play it. Right then, no practice, no testing it out to make sure it's gonna sound awesome. They know their instruments so well, and they love music so much that they just go for it and do their own thing with amazing results. For example, maybe you've seen a musical called The Sound of Music before. And maybe you've heard a song from that musical called My Favorite Things, right? Raindrops on roses and whiskers on kittens. A jazz artist named John Coltrane played a version of My Favorite Things, and I want to play a little piece of it for you right now. You might recognize this song at the beginning, but then listen to where he takes it. Ready? Now, we have to stop in the middle because the full performance is longer, but did you hear it? Even at the beginning, he is not playing the exact notes of the melody all the time. Sometimes he's playing around them. Then he completely improvises in the middle, and at the end, he goes back to the song we remember, mostly. We never know what's going to happen next. That's improvisation. John Coltrane invited us to go with him by playing music a lot of people already knew and then saying, but what if? Now, this is Ella Fitzgerald, and she used jazz in a different way through something called call and response. African people brought this form of music to America with them and used it to communicate with, uplift, and support each other. Here's a cool way I saw it described. One person is the caller who raises the song, and the people who sing back agree underneath the song. Here's Miss Fitzgerald singing a song called A Tisket, a Tasket. Watch how she invites people to call back to her.
Oh, why was I so careless with that basket of mine? That itty bitty basket was the joy of mine. Basket, I lost my yellow basket. Won't someone help me find my basket and make me happy again?
Was it red?
No, 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 no.
Was it green?
No, 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 no.
Was it cerise?
No, no, just a little yellow basket. A little yellow basket.
And just in case you were wondering what color cerise was, it looks like this. You can see that call and response can be a lot of fun. Some people do this with their voices and others with musical instruments. Sometimes musicians will take turns being the caller during different parts of the same song. One last thing I want to tell you about jazz music is that no one expects the same song to be played the same way twice, especially not by two different people. In jazz, everyone develops their own special sound. Here are two very famous jazz musicians playing the same song. First, Louis Armstrong. And now, Miles Davis. Pretty different, right? It's almost like we can feel the spirits of the two different musicians communicating with us through their music. One thing I learned this week is that I totally understand why jazz might be an interesting thing for Unitarian Universalists like us to think about. Jazz artists do things with their music that we do with our theology. They take their heritage and even things people have given them that they didn't want, and they do something new with them. They take risks. They make music a conversation right in the middle of this song. I know this is something I'll keep being curious about, and I'm interested to hear what Reverend Joel has to say about it. I am very curious to hear your thoughts about how making jazz music is like being a UU. And I think you should save the chat today because I'm going to drop a link in there with a big bunch of jazz music for kids. Thank you.
It is in the sharing of our joys and sorrows that we find the strength to bear our sorrows. And we find the power of our joys. Part of the lesson of jazz, actually. It is in the playfulness of the music that so much can be expressed. It's in the freedom of the music that our joys and our sorrows, and ultimately our lives, can be freed, be liberated. The joy today is from Norma Cummins, who has expressed her gratitude for the support she has received from the congregation after the death of her son, a great sorrow. Sorrows today include, well, here we are on Zoom, not in the building, Omicron. And one other sorrow that looms large for those of us in the United States, perhaps in the neighbors of the United States too. The anniversary of the January 6th terrorist insurrection in our United States Capitol. Difficult times for our country. It is in the sharing of who we are. The difficulties, the vulnerabilities, the joys, the dreams, that we realize how truly and profoundly we are interconnected, that there is a unity to all that is and all that lives. I invite you into the spirit of meditation and prayer with me. I began this meditation, this prayer, and tried to figure out what I should even call it. Some of us agnostics, some of us atheists, some of us theists, some of us none of the above. What do I call this? Do I address it to anyone? Spirit of life? God? Vital force? Higher power? Whom it may concern? Beloved community? Every time I try to find a name, the words crumble like dust. They crumble like some of my prayers. They vanish in a haze. What exactly is a prayer supposed to be for a Unitarian Universalist? Someone told me the other day she knows you're there, but doesn't know how to pray to you. I knew exactly what she meant, because I wake up every day and the humanist in me says, "You still doing that God thing?" And the theist says, "Yeah." Humanist shakes his head. I keep offering thanks before my meals and before a service, and sometimes I find it just doesn't work because I'm forcing myself. I'm forcing the words, and maybe I haven't quite felt it yet. And I just find myself doing it out of duty. Not quite a prayer. But it isn't long before I am reminded. What is it I'm doing when I meditate or I pray or whatever it is we're going to call this? I remember it when I walk down the street. I was walking down the street just the other day. The sun was shining, the sky warm and blue, the leaves dancing around my feet as I walked through my neighborhood in Indianapolis. And I knew all of a sudden, yeah, the words, they just came. Thank you for this day, for this beautiful place. Thank you for my children. Thank you for the people in my life, my family. Thank you for my church. Those beautiful people. Hopes and dreams, commitments and vulnerabilities. Thank you for the music. Thank you for the food, enough to eat. Thank you for the flowers and the babies who are growing up around us. Thank you for the people who care for them. Thank you for the people who have the courage to walk into the church and just even join it. So much difference, so much unity, all so beautiful. And I get the honor of being a part of all of this. It's a moment like that my prayers can't crumble to dust. They're like jazz. They just flow from my soul, and I don't have to think them out or write them out in advance. Bam! They just flow like a river of life, like the music of love and hope and dreams. May our lives flow and play together in this way, even when times are difficult and rough. We have one another. May the spirit of jazz, let the music in our hearts be playful and sing. So be it. Amen. Blessed be.
Each week we share our offering plate with an organization that shares and advances our values. And this week, half of all of our contributions will be given to the Freedom School. The Freedom School is an evidence-based summer learning and family engagement program. And the Freedom School supports students by offering programming in a culturally appropriate manner designed to empower and promote civic engagement and literacy. This morning, you can visit our link that will be posted in the chat, or you can go directly to allsoulsindy.org, where you will find a link that says Give to All Souls here on the left side beneath the description for today's service. Donations given today will be split with the organization. Thank you for your generosity in supporting the mission of All Souls and for your continued support of the Freedom School. May we now accept our morning offering.
The music we're going to listen to today while we do that is a piece for piano by the famous jazz pianist Thelonious Monk. This is a song of his called Round Midnight.
Well, you know, we all get asked this question. It's a frustrating one. I think I might have even mentioned it last week in a sermon about words and where words get their meaning. That question. So, what do Unitarian Universalists believe? The question gets asked on the playground, it gets asked at work, on the bus, on the airplane. I always want to sigh a little bit when I get the question. If folks really knew about us, they would know that asking that question of us is kind of like asking a Jewish rabbi which of the Hindu gods is the one they worship the most, or asking the Dalai Lama of Tibetan Buddhism, when is it Jesus became your Lord and Savior? But Not everybody doesn't always realize the question is rude. And whether it is or not, no need to be rude back. Sometimes the person asking really wants to know, what is a Unitarian Universalist? I'll sing them a song if they really want to know, maybe Spirit of Life. It's easier than trying to make a long list of what we do and don't do. Sometimes really they only want a short answer. Maybe they don't even want an answer. So I'll tell them what Louis Armstrong said when someone asked him to explain jazz. Louis Armstrong said, "Man, if you gotta ask, you'll never know." There was a time I was tempted to say that we Unitarian Universalists are the jazz players of religion, but I realized that wasn't fair, nor is it true. A lot of religions call themselves the jazz of spirituality. It's kind of like jazz music, actually. If I start proclaiming that Unitarian Universalists are the one true jazz of spirituality, it's not jazz anymore. It's just not jazz. No one gets to own jazz. No one gets to define it. It does have some basic principles, though. And really, once you try to layer on anything more than just those principles, it gets kind of being anti-jazz. It's not a lot of fun anyway. And that's kind of why I think of Unitarian Universalism as a lot like jazz. Jazz music has these basic principles. In jazz, the players use a common key signature. That is the key in which you're singing the song. You might sing "Spirit of Life, come unto me," or you might move it up a key. "Spirit of Life, come unto me," and it usually helps to be in the same key. Usually, you want to have it in the same rhythm. So the Spirit of Life, come unto me, and usually you want to have it in the same rhythm. Sometimes maybe you don't. And then you just want to be playful. You just want to be, you need a little humility after you do that. After you have that common key and that common rhythm, you just need to be open and playful, improvise, see what it is that happens. The key word for me here is humility. It comes from the ancient meaning of the word earth, of the ground itself. Human, humanity, humble, hospital, humus even, soil, humility, all really come from the same root. Jazz has its own slang word for this idea of being humble, of being human. In jazz, the word is funky. Funky probably comes from the word funk, which means a strong smell of tobacco smoke. And then it grew to mean original, earthy, maybe kind of smelly, definitely down home. I'm especially partial to down home myself. So when I think if we want to get jazzy, we want to be inspired by the spirit of jazz and be playful, we're going to have to be funky, a bit humble, and be playful and be joyful and respect each other's freedom. I improvise, then I make sure there's space for you to improvise, and then we make space for someone else to improvise and be playful. And then we come back together and play. And that takes a lot of listening as well as a lot of practicing. And you got to do it all funky. It means we got to use our bodies, our hearts, our souls. It's not just enough to go along. And actually, that's what I love about being a Unitarian Universalist. I think we have to be a bit funky, a bit down home. We're definitely a funky religion. Really, if you think about it, funky in a really nice sense. Science and reason are our common beat, I think. Love is our common key. And funky is how we share our souls. Vulnerable, open, playful, maybe even a little silly. And the rest is improvisation. And we just got to make space for each other so that we can really play. And what I love about that is that then we find in the doing of this new ways to sing about joys and sorrows, or to sing about truth, or to sing about the holy, or whether we even believe in the holy. Or maybe there's a way of talking about the holy even though we don't believe in a God, or maybe what it's like to believe in a God but not be having any experience of a God. There's just so many infinite possibilities, just like there is in jazz music. You can think about it a little bit. Here we are together on Zoom. Some days when we can be together in the church building, we're a group of people, some of us atheists, some of us theists, some of us don't know, none of the above. Many gods, no gods, all of this beautiful diversity. And here we are, maybe on one Sunday, some of us being playful about a God, and some of us being playful about a God we don't believe exists. It's just fun. It's just joyful, silly. And for those of us who are hoping and aren't really believing, the next song can just be about something else. So we can be playful about other things too. The great jazz musician Wynton Marsalis once said, "Every strand of American music comes directly from Congo Square." I'm talking about the roots of jazz itself. And Marsalis was overstating the importance of Congo Square and its role in jazz and all of American music, but only by a little bit. We do have, of course, classical music from our European heritage, and much of that music written before the influence of Congo Square and of jazz. But so what is Congo Square? It's where jazz and American music were born. Congo Square is this open plaza in New Orleans, Louisiana. And something that's important to know about Louisiana is that most of the states of the United States that were established as colonies were established by the English, by England. But Louisiana was established first as a colony by the French, by France. And there's some big differences in Louisiana. For example, in most states we have something we call counties. So in Indianapolis, for example, we're in the city and county of Marion County. If you go north, there's Hamilton County. But if you're in Louisiana, they're parishes, because it's a French, its heritage comes out of the French. Terrebonne Parish, for example, it's one parish, county. Another thing is that in Louisiana, the laws of Louisiana are founded upon Napoleonic law instead of English common law, like in the rest of the 49 states of the United States. Unfortunately, white European people were still enslaving black African people in that colony. But there was a difference, a crucial difference in how they operated. The English colonies treated enslaved people in a way that they were not allowed to sing the music or drum the drums of the traditions that they had before they were stolen from Africa and enslaved and brought to North America. They couldn't drum. They could only sing certain songs, European sounding songs, supposedly. There wasn't a Congo Square in most states. But in New Orleans, in the colony of Louisiana, the French colonial government gave Sunday off to enslaved people and allowed them to gather in Congo Square, sort of off at the edge of town. And so whenever they could, African people in New Orleans, whether they were enslaved or free, would go to Congo Square. And there they would share their music. They would share the singing and the dancing and the drumming that they had grown up with as Igbo people in Africa, or the Hausa people in Africa, the Yoruba people, the Ashanti people, the Segu people. All of these and other nations. And all of these cultures coming to this one square where they would share their music and give each other space to be playful, to dance and to drum, to sing. And sometimes in their playfulness, they would sing about their sorrows or the crimes of having been enslaved. And sometimes they would sing about their joys, people they loved, the beauty of being alive, of being in love, how wonderful it was to dance. New Orleans is at the mouth of the Mississippi River, one of the largest rivers in the world. It's a major trade route. It was then and continues to be now. It connects trade to almost half of the United States with the rest of the world. In the Civil War, the northern states occupied New Orleans to close off the Mississippi from the Confederacy. And they set the enslaved people free in New Orleans and in Louisiana. And the people who were children of Africans began to learn about a European classical music as well as the music of their own ancestors. And the other thing they were allowed to do, they were allowed to buy their own musical instruments, or at least make them. And then Congo Square really changed. Amazing music began to come together with the amazing music of classical European music and the classical music of the nations of Africa. And then because New Orleans and Congo Square were on this major trade route, it all began to spread, that the sound of this new music spread. It spread up the Mississippi to St. Louis, Memphis, Chicago. It spread out into the Gulf of Mexico and then to Cuba, to Brazil, and eventually even across the sea to Europe. So when Wynton Marsalis says American music is rooted in Congo Square, he's talking about a lot of American music. Yes, jazz and the blues, but swing. My father loved to listen to Benny Goodman. Rock and roll. I love to listen to rock and roll. Country music even. Hip-hop music, punk music, folk music, even classical composers like Gershwin or Copeland, all influenced by the spirit of music that began in Congo Square. Sarah Cannon explained in The Time for All Ages that spirit brings distinctive sounds and complex rhythms. And because jazz is also about freedom and liberation, the spirit of jazz sounds a lot like people talking to one another. It's a music with enough freedom that the music almost talks back and forth. So when I was a kid, I collected vinyl record albums. I loved rock and roll. I loved classical music. I was a funny little kid. I mean, I had a bust of Beethoven. I thought, Schroeder and Peanuts had this bust of Beethoven. I thought it was pretty cool. It was pretty silly too. But I loved Beethoven. I loved jazz too. I didn't understand it very well. But when Sarah Cannon played some of John Coltrane's amazing jazz music, I went right back to my childhood. That song of Favorite Things, where John Coltrane's playing it in his unique way. If you were to listen to more of John Coltrane's music, you would find some of it beautiful. It would make you feel like dancing. Some of it would make you wonder. Some of it's pretty hard to listen to. There's a reason for that. So, John Coltrane was born in 1926 in North Carolina. His grandfathers were both ministers of churches. His mother played piano for a choir. His father played the violin. His childhood was filled with music and church and stern and very loving men, fathers, uncles, grandfathers. And then a terrible tragedy happened. When John Coltrane was a young teenager, his father, his uncle, and grandfathers all died within a year. And young John was devastated. He picked up his saxophone and began playing it all the time. It helped him feel better. Coltrane's mother needed work, so they moved to Philadelphia, and there he was able to take lessons from a very good saxophone teacher. Then he joined the army in the Second World War and served as a musician because he was very good at playing the saxophone. He got so good that a great band leader, Miles Davis, asked John Coltrane to join his legendary jazz quintet in 1955. But for Coltrane, the music hadn't been enough, or hadn't felt like it was enough. He'd become addicted to drugs and alcohol. His playing suffered. Miles Davis fired him. Coltrane reached a very low point in his life a couple of years later. And then he realized, I don't want to die from addiction. So he shut himself in a room for 2 weeks and went through the painful withdrawal from drugs and from alcohol. But something else happened for him. And this is what he writes about it. During the year 1957, I experienced, by the grace of God, a spiritual reawakening, which was to lead me to a fuller, richer, more productive life. And at that time, in gratitude, I humbly asked to be given the means and privilege to make others happy through music. He realized it had made him happy. He wanted to make others happy. And this was enough for him never to again to use drugs and alcohol. And he was fascinated by what he experienced. He began exploring the religion of his childhood, Christianity, but he began exploring other religions, Islam. And then he went to India and studied Hinduism. He read the Bhagavad Gita. His music became praying, and playing the music became religious worship, like a worship service. He found truth in all the religions of the world and in the music of those religions. I hadn't known about this when I was a kid growing up Unitarian Universalist, and when I was older and listening to Coltrane one day and reading about him, I was absolutely delighted to find how much he appreciated so many different religions and tried to understand how they could play together. And so if you listen to his music, some of his music, and find it odd or strange to listen to, it's because he was putting those the traditions together. He was playing the music together. Sometimes he might be playing something like My Favorite Things alongside a Hindu religious hymn. Or perhaps at the same time he's playing an Islamic call to worship. Coltrane was looking for a way his music could bring people, he said, bring people something like happiness. I want to discover a method so that if one of my friends is sick, I could play a certain song, he'd be cured. I want my playing to be a force for real good. I know that there are bad forces here that bring suffering, but I want to be the force which is truly good. Coltrane was living jazz. He was living the faith of his childhood, the Christian faith, living the primary 2 commandments, to love our neighbors as ourselves and to love what is holy. After his religious conversion, Coltrane would play his sax, and you could see his whole body moving. He'd be consumed with the music and the spirit of it. He opened himself to the Spirit, and it was playing with the Spirit, founded on the basic principles of music, a key, a beat, the basic principles of spirituality, love, respect for others, and being willing to improvise, to be playful. Coltrane said, once you become aware of this force for unity in life, you can never forget it. It becomes part of everything you do. My goal in meditating on this through music is the same, and that is to uplift people as much as I can, to inspire them to realize more and more of their capacities for living meaningful lives, because there is certainly so much meaning to life. From the music of Congo square to ragtime to swing to the music of John Coltrane, even the music of George Gershwin. There's that spirit. Or from the love of the ancients to the love of Rabbi Jesus, the prophet Moses, the prophet of Islam, Muhammad, peace be unto him, to Unitarian Universalism, to all those other religions of the world, and the spirit of love that flows through all of us. There is a power and joy in knowing those simple and basic principles that can bring us together, even when times are hard. It's good to remember joy when we suffer losses. It's good to remember freedom when the powers of tyranny threaten the world around us. And if the music is hard, listen. Listen with the voice of the holy and with the voice of a playful spirit. You can hear something calling us. Improvise, be playful, be love, share the beat, play in the key of love. You are all players. So listen, love, be funky. Listen when the music longs for someone we have lost. Listen when it sings of summer nights and being in love. Listen when the music plays of rainy nights and being broke and not really having anywhere to go. Listen, because jazz is life singing itself into wholeness.
While I get my screen back up for us, we're going to have a little musical interlude right now. It seemed like a hymn is in some ways the opposite of jazz in its ethos. So we're going to listen to a rising jazz artist in the field for a little interlude before our benediction. So enjoy this performance. This is Cecily McLaurin Salvant.
We have had this time of worship together, even if at a distance. May the music bring us across that distance, close to one another, and close to the love of all which surrounds us. Go in love. Know that you are loved. Know that if you cannot find it, if joy seems too far to be grasped, reach out. We will walk and sing with you, and we will be together again. Go in peace, be in peace. Amen.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. That was a fun service, fun to listen to all this music. I'm going to play a little postlude for you, give you a chance to get some coffee, and then we'll open up our breakout rooms. Enjoy your Sunday afternoon. Thank you so much.